Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a journey into our inner lives, our thoughts, our feelings, emotions, beliefs, everything we have that helps shape the way we interact with and respond to the outside world. And if we can use these tools of consciousness, we can improve both our inner and our outer lives, and thus have a better total life experience. Well, one of the things we need to do in our lives is eat. And unfortunately, we tend to eat a lot of junk food. And the same is true in our inner life. We feed ourselves with junk ideas, with harmful and hurtful emotional imagery and stories and thoughts. And it can be just as bad for your psychic life, which also influences your body life, as eating junk food can do in your physical body. Okay? So junk food is fast. It's so abundant. It's in grocery stores. It's on the street corner. Even what we might think to be good food now, because of certain farming techniques, doesn't have the nutritional value that it used to have. So a lot of times, even if you're trying to eat good food, it may still not have that nutritional value that we so desperately need to have and maintain a healthy body. Well, if you're feeding your mind with junk ideas, if you're filling your heart with these harmful, hurtful images and feelings, you're not going to have a good inner life. That will be just as unhealthy as your body would be unhealthy if you only ate junk food. Okay? Now, first of all, a lot of this has to do with proportion. You know, a little bit of junk food now and then, some sweets, whatever. It's probably not going to be all that harmful if the rest of your diet is filled with good food. Same with junk ideas. You can sustain any kind of bombardment of negative imagery as long as that's a small portion. But the way news is broadcast, the way stories and gossip floats through the internet, usually it's the bad stuff, and there's so much of it. There's seemingly no end to bad news stories. In fact, in the news business, they say, if it bleeds, it leads. So if it's a plane crash or some disaster or some violent act, it's going to get more play on the news cycle and a larger proportion in the media stream than some good stories, some heartwarming stories about the best of humanity. Unfortunately, we seem to get fed through the airwaves and the newspapers this negative, really poor examples of humanity. And since there's so much of it, it's so out of proportion, you can end up thinking and feeling like there's no hope for humanity, or that most people are bad, or they're negative, or they're violent. Okay? And I really don't think that's the case. Just because it's portrayed that way doesn't mean that's really actually what's going on. And the same with fiction. You know, there are fewer feel-good movies than there are, movies about some disaster or some apocalyptic meltdown or any kind of, war movie or things like that. On TV too. Gosh, crime dramas and murder mysteries. Fine if it's entertainment. It's not necessarily bad. But if you lose proportion, you fill yourself with this feeling of futility and frustration, discouragement. It can really be depleting. It can deplete your inner resources just like a diet of junk food will deplete your physical resources and harm your physical body. And if you feed your mind and your heart with junk, harmful ideas and feelings, that will also hurt your body. It doesn't just stay in your mind, okay? It will have a negative effect. If you're anxious all the time, or angry all the time because of what you see out there in the world, if you witness through media injustices, then your heart will hurt. You may even be angry at these people or governments or institutions that are promoting and promulgating this violent act. You may feel like you want to perform a violent act on them as a form of retribution and punishment. All right, and they deserve it because they were so bad, and one bad turn deserves another. That sets up a whole ecosystem of frustration and anger and despair in our inner lives that will ultimately have a negative effect on our physical bodies. All right, so we have to reduce and get in proportion what these things are that come in. Okay, there is bad in the world. There are harmful acts being committed all the time. Okay, that's true. I'm not saying they're not true, or that I'll stick my head in the sand and say everything's all right when it isn't. It's good to recognize those things because those are the things that need to be worked on. They need to be improved. They need to be healed in society and on the individual level. Okay, and it's not just the things out there coming in that we take in to our inner life. There's within us negativity. Within us, there's despair. Within us are all these things that we also see out there. And if we contain them, if we embody, if we ensoul these ideas and these emotions, it sets us up for failure, for frustration, and for having really an unhappy life. Okay, so we have to feed on good nutritional, spiritual, mental imagery and stories about people. We need to have that flowing within us. Okay, that has to be going on inside us. We have to be manufacturing, we have to be producing optimism and positivity and healing, because we live in a world that has negativity, has disease of both the mind and the body, and we need to match that energy, actually even more in proportion with that energy with the good things, with the healing things. Okay? If there's chaos, we need to bring calmness. If there's agitation, we need to bring serenity. If there's pain, we need to bring in healing, calming, comforting attitudes and actions in our lives. And we can express those outwardly. We can do a kind thing. We can get involved in an organization or in a neighborhood or just in your own community or your own family. Do the good thing. Reduce the amount of anger and frustration that you feel. Doesn't mean you can't feel it at all, but when it comes, go, wow, I'm really feeling angry and I want to lash out and I want to tear this person who it was harmful to a dog that I saw in the news. I want to tear them to pieces and see how they like that. Well, you can have that thought, but let it go. Okay, don't harbor these things, okay? Harbor is when you protect something, when you harbor a resentment, you nurse a grudge, you're actually keeping it alive. You're making something even bigger out of it. It's festering, all right? It's licking the wound that won't heal. Okay, we can't feed on these junk ideas and these negative emotions. There's no shortage of them, okay? But the gatekeeper has to be with us. We can limit news stories and maybe news sources, the places where we get this imagery in our social media or on television or in the movies. And we can take the time, because it's a little bit harder to find some of these other stories, these better examples of humanity. They're there. They just don't get played as much as the negative stuff does. And maybe that's news business, or maybe that's just a paradigm under which these media organizations work. And we do know that bad news travels more swiftly than good news. Gossip gets kicked around, whether it's online or whether it's on the telephone, it gets kicked around and it gets snowballed, more makes more, and it kind of takes over everything and becomes a fixation, becomes a focal point, and then it becomes your nutritional diet. This is what you're feeding on. This is what you're living on. This is what you're taking in to your inner life and expecting to extract, the right kind of energy and emotions and things you need to live a full, productive life. No, these are depleting things. This is, not only is it poor nutrition, it actually takes away. It's toxic. There's a negative effect. Okay? It can actually make things worse. So you have to bring to the table, which means you have to have it to begin with. So you have to cultivate within yourself these good feelings. Okay? People are basically good. No matter how many violent acts you want to see on TV or online, people basically are good. They want to be. Okay? A lot of the people that are angry, that lash out, are probably hurt in some way, or frustrated, or devastated, and this is the expression of those hurt, wounded feelings. Okay, so maybe a little more compassion needs to go out, even to the people you don't like, especially to the people you even hate, or at least you hate the act that they did. All right? Doesn't mean to condone it, doesn't mean to support it, certainly doesn't mean to agree with it. But what you're doing is you're saying, this person, this violent person, is probably hurt. Okay? The bully at school is probably bullied at home. And this bullying is used as a way to heal, to feel not so bad. Okay? But the effect of what they're doing is certainly negative to the other person that they're bullying, all right? So it doesn't make it good, doesn't make it right, but it helps develop an understanding of why this is happening, how this is happening, what goes through someone, why would they do something like that? And if you can get past the initial act, and that may have to be punished for that, there may have to be consequences, there should be, but to go beyond the punitive and get to the healing, get to the redemption, all right? We live lives in this one-room schoolhouse. We're all in different grades, okay? We're all at different levels and stages of our development, and we all have to grow in our own way and a lot of times on our own terms. So we have to allow other people that opportunity to grow, share what it is we've learned to help other people grow, and bring to the frustration a sense of hope. Okay? Bring healing to a wounded situation. If somebody's agitated, send them serenity, not more agitation, because more makes more. If somebody's thirsty, okay, and they're mad because they're thirsty and they're hungry, they haven't eaten in a while, their mouth is dry and they're, give me something, and they could be like, this person's crazy, get them away from me. It's like, no, give them a little water, a little bit of food, and they'll probably be all right, okay? So we have to look at our inner lives just like we look at our bodies. And if we're not taking care of our bodies, we may not be taking care of our inner lives as well. Now, the opposite can be true. You can take very good care of your body. You can have the most nutritional diet, and you can do your yoga and your meditation. You can do all these things. But if you're not feeling that inside, okay, maybe you're just going through the actions. And yes, that may be good for your physical organism, but you're putting one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. All right? If you're not feeling and healing these inner parts of yourself, and you're not feeding them with proper nutrition, with spiritual and mental and emotional imagery and beliefs, thoughts, stories, examples out there in the world, you're not going to be healthy on the inside. And your body, as a result, will also suffer. Okay? So you may be taking care of the physical organism to a pretty reasonable degree, but if that is not also backed up with a healthy inner life, with this nutrition for your psyche, then it will still have a negative effect on your body. It may unravel and undo some of the really good things you've done in the outside world, or at least in the food sense of nutrition for your physical body. So try to limit, just as you would limit junk food in your diet, limit the junk imagery and emotional stories and loaded pictures and horrible news stories. Limit your intake of that. Maybe you want to be informed and see what's going on. It's probably hard to avoid some of that because so much of the news, the majority it seems like, has some negative or dramatic or tragic element to it. All right? Still limit how much of that you take in and supplement with the good stuff, just like with food. So limit the junk food, the super oily, super sweet, junk food, whatever's junk for you in your diet, whatever doesn't work that you still may want to eat. Not going to hurt you if the majority of your diet is reasonable and healthy and nutritious. So just in the same way, taking in this negative emotional maelstrom that seems to be floating around and interpenetrating the outside world and the hearts and minds of humanity. Okay, you can take some of that in, but make sure that that is the minority, that is the smaller portion. Okay, the bulk is nutritional. And what are these nutritional things? And they're harder to find if you're looking out there in news stories. Somebody helping somebody out, somebody paying something for somebody because they needed something, helping the old lady across the street, the proverbial earn your merit badge in the Boy Scouts, those kinds of things. Those are all very good. They happen all the time. They just don't get the publicity, okay? The drama gets the entertainment, okay? If it's something some celebrity did or they wore the wrong thing on the red carpet, oh, it's big news, and we'll talk about that all day. But what about the Little League coach that, maybe he took out a second job in his spare time so he could buy uniforms for his team because the community couldn't pay for it or the school couldn't afford it or something. You don't hear about that much. Randomly you'll hear a story here and there. But trust me, this stuff happens all the time. There is so much good in humanity. There's so much good out there that it seems like we lose sight of that because we're not as exposed to that as often and with such intensity. But to know it's there, to see that it's there, and by doing that, you're really cultivating that within yourself. All right, so to bring to this world, maybe the world is thirsty for good things, okay? Bring water like a stream would to a thirsty people. Okay, people need that. More makes more. If you're on social media, share posts and news stories and tweets or whatever that are good. And I don't mean just fluff, funny cat video. That's fun, but that's kind of a diversion. Okay, I'm really talking about the stories of humanity. Okay, the best of humanity, small or large. A lot of times the good stuff doesn't really get played in news media unless it's, really big and really dramatic. Somebody did something really amazing or they really risked their life to save another person. It's great to hear those stories too. But I'm talking about the everyday, just like your diet, okay? You don't rave about, 3 meals a day and your oatmeal and just the regular stuff you eat to get through the day. You may rave about that one restaurant you go to, or this special, treat that you got at the state fair, and that's great. But this spiritual nutrition has to be daily. It has to be the bulk of your inner composition that you take in from the outside world. Because once it's on the inside, that's where it's going to stay. Okay? And if you're festering and you're nursing these grudges inside, it's going to make everything worse. So you want to make sure that you're growing good crops, you're cultivating good ideas and good feelings. Even if there's so much bad out there, you still have to have hope and faith in humanity. Okay? No matter what's going on, you still have to have this sense, because if you have it within yourself, you will radiate hope and faith and love and compassion. You will tolerate the people that you don't like. You will allow the free speech of somebody who has ideas and opinions that you very much disagree with. Okay? It is this open forum, this sense of freedom, this allowing somebody to grow at their own pace, and it's allowing you to grow. Because if you're stuck in negativity and hopelessness and despair because of what's going on out there, that's going to have effect on your life, and then you might feel hopeless or helpless in yourself. So more makes more. If there's more junk, it'll feed more junk. If you eat more junk food, you will have junk digestion. You will have, all the functionings of your body, your skin, your hydration level. Everything is affected by the food and liquid that you take in to your body. So with your soul, with your inner life, with your mind, with your head, with your heart, take in the good stuff. Seek it. Limit the negative. Okay, that's not good for you. It's there. You may have to see it, but make sure you're bringing in the good stuff and that you're producing more of that within yourself. Maybe you're a warrior and you're going to fight back, but you don't fight back to a violent thing with violence. Okay, you fight back with hope and love. It's hard to do. It's hard to even grasp that concept, but that's what's needed. Okay, you bring what's needed and you bring it in your own life. Okay, if you feel weak and powerless, conjure up strength. Counter that. Counteract it by a factor of 2 or 5 or 10 and say, no, I'm not weak. I am strong. I have faith. I have belief in myself and in humanity, and I will not let this negativity, this despair, despondency to take over. Okay, it's there, but I am counteracting. I am taking in the good spiritual nutrition. I am cultivating that within, and I am projecting that out, and that will help you, and you will radiate with a better sense of who you are and a better hopeful, especially when things are bad. It's easy to be hopeful and happy when everything is going your way. This is when you need it, when things aren't going well, when things in the world seems like it's gone mad. That's when you need even more sanity. Okay? If the world is violent, you need more peace, and project that out. So it's a tall order. It's tough to do sometimes, just like it's tough to eat good food, especially if you travel or you're on the road. And really, that's all there is these junk food places. If you turn on the TV and get online, all you're going to see is mostly negative stories in the world of negative things about people. So you have to work at it. You have to work a little bit harder. You may have to work a lot harder, but this spiritual nutrition, this mental diet has to be more life affirming. It has to be nutritious, okay? If you're going to survive and thrive, both inner and outer, in your body and in your soul, we need better nutrition, food, and thoughts. All right, so chew on that for a while, and we'll see you next time here on Living the Inner Life.